All right, welcome to this week's client support webinar. My name is Bennett McDowell with TradersCoach.com. Great to be here with you again. And so hopefully all my happy clients are doing good out there. All right, so this is a webinar for you guys. Today, my topic is going to center around some of the indicators at the bottom of the chart that we use called the ERI, which stands for Emotional Reader Index, and also the Trendline Master, TLM. All right, so we're going to talk about those. Now, last week we talked about the OWL, which is the optimum wave locator, and the PTF, which is the precision trend filter. And so if you missed that one, definitely take a look at that recording because we went really in good detail on both those indicators and everybody seemed to like that. So that's a good place for you to catch up there. Okay, so you can view that. And this one will be recorded as well, all right? And the recordings are all hosted on our YouTube channel. All right, so happy traders. Let's see if Jean has anything she wants to talk to us about today. Jean? Jean, calling Jean. I guess Jean's not there yet. All right.
Oh, I'm here. I just couldn't find the darn microphone.
Okay, all right, there you go.
Welcome, happy traders. Boy, Al Lewicki is in the house. Hello. Hey, James Blue and Patricia and the rest of the gang. I guess the main thing I like to remind everybody is come to our Friday YouTube event, because that I think is so cool. So maybe Ben, you can explain the Friday Stock Analysis Friday, and I will post a link.
Okay, cool. Well, Stock Analysis Friday is basically where we meet each and every Friday on YouTube, and it also is broadcasted on Facebook and also LinkedIn. So if you have one of those social media platforms, you can view us. If you are going to use YouTube, that's usually, I think, where the recordings are held. So that gives you a little extra to go back and take a look at things. And so what we do in that is basically go over stock picks that look pretty good. And people usually come and, bring 2 or 3, unless it's Al, he brings a whole handful, which is great, Al. All right, I love that. So the more you bring, the more of a chance it is that we can find good stocks to trade, right? And so it's almost like a stock picking service at that point, but it's free. And the reason I do it, like I said in my last webinar I just did, is because it gives me a chance to show off how to use our software. And so that's the benefit we get from it. But also too, it's a lot of fun because you know what? I even find stock picks from that because everybody brings a few and we go through them and there's some on there that I didn't see before. So definitely a good session to attend, and it's free, and it's every Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific time, only for about half an hour or so. Oh, well, no, that's not true. Usually it's about an hour because, I like to go through everybody's stock picks. So that's kind of it. So Gene put the link on that. You need to join us on YouTube, become a subscriber, and that way you can use their chat service and type in the stocks you want me to look up during the session. All right, so there is that. So let me go through some administrational items so we can get started today on talking about the indicators. All right, first thing I have to go over are the risks involved in trading. And, we can't guarantee anything in the markets. Everything is probabilities, and it's kind of like weather forecasting, right? All right, so we do the best we can based on tools that we use, and I've created a whole suite of tools that I'll talk about in just a minute. That we use, and many of you, of course, already own those. That's why you're here. But in any case, you need to know how to use the tools, and again, that's why you're here. All right, but you have to realize that nothing's guaranteed, okay? And so you have to have good risk control, and you have to have money you can afford to risk to do this business, and that's called risk capital. Now, in terms of money management for traders, my book, second to the right, that's the book you're going to want to go to learn about risk control. I have a more in-depth book on the far left called A Trader's Money Management System as well. So you can choose how deep of a dive you want to take in the risk control money management arena, but you need to take a dive, whether you use the newer book or the older book, get in there and take the dive because you need to implement that into your trading. And then we've got Elliott Wave Techniques Simplified. That's a book on the Elliott Wave and survival guide for traders, how to run your business from your home using today's technology, like a hedge fund. And then we've got a new edition of the Art of Trading, the second edition coming out this year at some point. And that's going to include the latest market information along with our latest software tools. So those are all available at Amazon, and Gene will probably put a link up there for you for direct access if you want to get any of those. All right, and that leads us to the software that I created and developed. Basically, the software deals in entries and exits and confirmation of certain signals, and for those we use this top row. And this is the ART software. Most of you have that. And then we, of course, we have the OWL and PTF. Now, this is what we covered last week on how those work. So again, if you didn't see that, definitely watch the recording. And then today, we're going to talk about these two indicators here called the Trendline Master and the ERI. So that's where we're going to focus today. Our scanners, and I think I'll just go through these, start going through these on some of the following sessions again. We have the multiple time frame scanner. This is how we find stocks or markets to trade, whether it's futures or whatever. And then we have the trade confirmer, turbo scanner, Elliott wave. They also allow us to look at some of our indicators without having to have the chart open, which is kind of cool. And then at the bottom is our risk control software. If you don't have risk control, you're gonna have a tough time being in this business. So that's our software that we have. And again, I know many of you have that already. All right, so let's get out of here. And this is TradeStation. So I always like to ask, how many people out there use TradeStation, and how many people out there use NinjaTrader? Or maybe eSignal. Maybe you're using eSignal or another platform as well. So this is what TradeStation looks like, and this is what NinjaTrader looks like. And I'll just put a data box window over here in the far right. So yeah, so Ninja, some TradeStation users, great to have you here, of course, and a lot of Ninja users as well. All right, so when you're looking at this, this is our scanners. Up here, this is, whenever I analyze a stock, I use multiple time frame analysis. So that's why you always see 3 charts with our software loaded on each chart. And this, for position trading, this is a 60-minute, this is a daily, and this is a weekly. So that's kind of how the breakdown is. All right, so let's go over the PTF. Now the PTF, not the PTF, the Trendline Master. I'm sorry, we went over the PTF last week. So let's go over this first. So when we look at the Trendline Master, all right, and somebody give me a stock. Let's look at a fresh stock that maybe you want to look at. So let's take a look and see what you got there. Anybody? Okay, Apple. That's a good one. And that's courtesy of Jim. Thank you, Jim. All right, so there's Apple. All right, off and running, right? All right, so a lot of good pyramids. And Jim, that's got some more legs to go. I think that's heading up to a new all-time high here. Let me just quickly take a look at this, since you so nicely suggested this one. So here's a situation where it came down to the target. Now it looks like it's bouncing back up. So let's do a fib extension. And let me just make sure this is accurately. I have to zoom in on some stuff here. So let's see what we got here roughly. All right, so roughly, you got to anchor those points fairly accurately. So, okay, so we'll move that over like something like right about there. Okay, so we're looking here at an eventual top for a longer term trade between 231 and 298, okay? So it's definitely leaped up. Now, on the short term time frame, which is the daily here, and even the 60 over here, we're starting to see bearish diversions. So we're probably going to get a little profit taking on that journey up to the long-term target zone. So don't be surprised if you see a pullback, but you should, it's only profit taking. So you should, it might pull back into the 150s, upper 150s before it heads higher, but it could head higher sooner versus later. Let's open up this daily chart for a minute. And notice that there's no trend lines on the chart, okay? But yet I have the ribbon loaded here. And this is the same for TradeStation too, or any of our platforms. So it's showing green here, okay, which indicates that the trend is up, right? So let's go ahead and grab and insert the trend lines on the chart. So when we talk about the trend line master, we're really talking about two studies. One study is the ribbon at the bottom, and the other study draws the trend lines on the chart. And when you buy the trend line master, you get both studies. But sometimes, some people like to have the trend lines, others just want to see what the trend is. So we made it one of those things that you can do it either way. So you go down to the trend line master indicator, and here's the ribbon that's already loaded. See, that's down here, okay? And then you've got the trend line master lines itself. So let's add those there and hit that, and give that a second to load there. Might have to change a few things here. Let's go back from, I think I got to refresh the chart. So let me just do that. And then let's do that. Okay, there they are. Okay, so now they've shown up, okay? So on this case here, we've broken a long-term trend line to the downside, and we have a current trend in place. So in a little while longer, it'll start drawing the trend lines up once this, now that it's exceeded the upper trend line there. And notice that it has different types of trend lines. Now, what happens with the software is it will remove some of the trend lines in the older history, because it doesn't want to have a bunch of trend lines that you don't really need anymore, right? And also too, what you want to pay attention is the current color. You don't need to look at the previous colors because that's, the past. And if we remove the trend line, some of those colors might not make sense. So you always want to kind of take a look at the current color right there, all right? And so that's showing a solid green to the upside. So the trend is up, and you can see the trend line already being drawn on the 60-minute chart here, okay? So that's kind of where that's at. All right, so that is the trend line master. I want you to take from this that it is two studies. And once you have it loaded, when you even change stocks, okay, it will change along with it, okay? And so that's the whole 9 yards there, okay? So that's it in a nutshell. And what we use it, I don't use it for initial entries, but if I'm looking to add on to a trend that's already moving up, so in other words, let's say I'm in this on the first pyramid, and then this pyramid comes in, and it's the third one, so technically I could add in again here. So if I add it in here, I want to make sure this is green, okay, on the time frame, on the primary time frame. So that's kind of how I use the trend line master. And if the trend lines are real tight, like they are on the 60-minute chart here, okay, I may use those for scaling out, but I don't use the trend line master for the initial entry, okay? All right, so that's kind of the deal with that. Now, the trend line master has settings, okay? And some of the settings are variables in which you can change. So let's just take a look at these. All right, so the trend line master ribbon, for example, just going to open this up so you can see it really good here. All right, so if you go to the indicator settings on whatever chart you're on, all right, go ahead and find first the trend line master ribbon. And this is how I have it set up. I have it set up on bar close for this, okay? Now, when I day trade, I have this set up on, I don't believe it's on bar close. I think it's on the current market, but actually I do have it on bar close. So it's on bar close. So this is something you want to check, okay? And some people don't like it on bar close, some people do. So we give this as a variable you can look at. All right, infinite number of price bars back. And that's kind of what you need to know for that setting. That's the trend line, okay? All right, and then the ribbon you want to make sure is kind of the same, right? And of course, that's going to be on bar close and infinite. Now, a couple things here. All right, let me just go back up here and then come back down here. All right, so that is primarily how you want it, and it pretty much defaults out of the box on that, on how you can use it. So there's not too many settings you have to mess with. It's pretty basic. Any questions on that? So make sure if you're seeing something different than what I'm seeing, make sure you have your settings set the same. That's step one. And the default is 600 price bars back. So that's where you're at there. Okay. And then make sure you have the correct amount of history set that I have, because that may affect it as well. So it always takes a snapshot. But what's important is the current setting, whatever it is. Okay. That's the important thing. Not past colors, not past trend lines, because those can sometimes get erased depending on how much history you have. So that's why history can make your trend lines look a little different than mine, because it will draw trend lines based on a certain amount of history, okay? And then it will erase those. But the actual reading should be the same as mine on the current trend. All right. So very simple, all right? You don't have to make this more really than it is. It's basically just a, what's the trend? And sometimes, you can have a green pyramid, but it can be going, the trend, the market can be going sideways. And so during the sideways motion, it may have pyramids, but no trend. So that's kind of the reason behind it. Now, the emotional reader index, which is this ribbon at the very, very bottom down here, all right? Basically what that's doing is it's looking at how far away prices are from a normal trend line. So it has trend lines built into it. And the idea is obviously, all right, let me put the whiteboard up. If you have an orderly trend going up, like this, then all of a sudden it goes like this, all right, then that's obviously pretty extreme and kind of manic. And you can see it could get far away from a normal trend. And so when that happens, the ERI jumps into action, and it looks to see how far away from the trend line it is, or the normal part of the trend, and then starts to determine whether that's normal or not. And when it's not normal, it indicates that we have some type of emotional mania in the market, either greed or fear that is excessive. And so at that particular point, it tells you that, and that's what it does. So if we take a look here, it formed, and on the ribbon, again, kind of like the trend line master, on this, we have two indicators. There's a ribbon, and then it actually draws things here, okay? And so when you get near the top, you tend to see the greed bars start to kick in, all right? Now, if you drew a trend line here on this, it would be something like that. And here's the breakaway from the trend line. Okay, so that's kind of what it's looking at there. All right, so in that case there, what it's telling you is you have, greed coming to the market. Now, how you use that price bar is very important, because remember the ART 1B and 2B. So the greed bar itself is what we call a signal bar. The fear bar itself is what we call a signal bar. So when you get prices coming up really super steep and you have a greed here, this is the signal bar. So if prices go below the greed bar, then that's showing they're probably going to return back to the trend line or make an approach back to the trend line. When it goes above the greed bar before going below it, that is an indication that the greed continues, and chances are you'll get another one. Likewise, when you have a trend to the downside that gets really excessive, all right, and away from a normal trend, this is where you can get a fear bar. So when you get a fear or greed bar, it's a signal bar. And so then it's very interesting to see what the market does after the fear or the greed bar is generated. Is the greed going to continue, or is it going to falter and come back to the trend line? So what's the importance of that? Well, normally we see these fear and greed bars usually within about 5 price bars of the top or bottom. Okay, normal, not always, but normal. The other thing too is you can also use the signal bar itself as a place to set maybe a scale out. So if we drop below the greed bar, you can scale out a certain position. Now, so in that function, it's used very similarly to how we use an art reversal, like a pivot point, right? And so that is the purpose of the fear and greed index, is to get you in that type of thing. So if we take a look at this chart here, let me just do this real quick and do that. So if we take a look at this, we had a greed bar here, but prices never went over the top and instead faltered, and there it returned back to the close proximity of the trend. Now it's gone back up again and got further away from the trend. Another greed bar occurred, and now you see it start to drop a little bit back down. So the fact is that the greed continued for another price bar, but again, this could certainly be within 5 price bars of a top here, of a significant top. So that's how you use it, okay? It's a place to possibly use for scaling out. Now, if you use this for scaling out, you obviously wouldn't be doing anything because you never went below the signal bar yet, okay? You could still have more greed come in, or it could come back down. But in this case here, until it goes below the bottom, you're not going to do anything. All right, so we'll see if the greed pops back up and continues. All right, any questions on that? All right. Yeah, and you can see, that's right, John, you can see greed and fear on any time frame that you have this setting on. Now you can adjust, let's go into the adjustments a little bit. You can adjust the fear and greed settings. So here we are, the emotional read. So you have an index and a pitch, okay? The pitch is the slope of the trend line it's looking at. The index is it indexing a short or long-term trend? So that can be different than the pitch. And you can play around with those numbers, and there's instructions on what they kind of do and so forth. You can also create it. There's a setting called trend here where it will only show in an existing trend. So if the trend is up and you have that set, okay, then the idea is it's only going to look for, you know, greed bars or something of that nature, okay? So that's possible as well. All right. So, but anyway, those are settings you can use, but I very rarely change them. Okay, I just kind of keep them the same. And that's, you know, it's a helpful indicator for scaling out. That's kind of the way it is. Again, I don't use fear and greed really to enter the markets. I use it more for telling me if the market has gotten too far away from the normal trend and we're seeing a reversal. By the way, Amazon's a great trade overall, long-term trade. So you may want to consider that. All right, any questions? And you can ask any questions on anything. All right, doesn't have to be just about the trend line or the ERI.
I think Al had a pick that we didn't have time for this morning, so maybe he wants to post that again.
All right. I thought I went through all his. Maybe I missed one. Al, if I missed one, pop it up there, okay? Yes, Dave, it works on all time frames, all markets. So you can load it on intraday charts too. And that's true with all our indicators. You know, when you're dealing with technical analysis, software that deals with technical analysis, there's no reason why it shouldn't work on all time frames in all markets, because it's looking at the dynamics of that particular time frame. All right. Well, that's kind of what I want to cover today. I think I've got all the questions out of the way. Anybody have anything else?
Everyone's super quiet today.
They are quiet. Well, quiet is okay. That's okay. I mean, everybody's happy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, I guess we'll go ahead and end here then. I want to wish everybody a happy June that's coming up. All right. And thank you for being here. And hard to believe that, God, I can't believe it's June already. How quick this year is going already. Almost halfway through, right? All right. So if you have anything that comes up during the week, write it down and bring it to the next client support. You can always create a ticket. Let me know if you don't know how to do that, but you can create a ticket and we will answer that in support. But also too, if you have a question regarding how to use the software and any trading questions, always good to come here because then I can show you on the chart itself, right? All right, guys and gals, you have a good one. We'll see you back here next week. Thank you so much, and you have a great week.